So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Honest feelings on the Google Pixel 2 XL. Now this device, I picked this up because, well, the Google Pixel 2 I had for quite some time, and the chunky bezels were just starting to get old. Every time I use a different device, I felt like this phone just felt stale. So I just wanted to upgrade to the bigger edition. Besides, many people were asking too, when are you going to review the Pixel 2 XL? So I picked this one up and we're going to compare it to some other phones. If you like to see it next to the S9 Plus, for example, or even some other devices, drop that down below in the comments. Let's begin with the specs. The key specs that really matter here on the Pixel 2 XL is a 6-inch display that's POLED, and that is 2K. You do have a 3520 milliamp hour battery on this guy. Also, you have a 12.2 megapixel 4K 30 frames per second camera, fingerprint at the back, and this has Android 8.1 Oreo above basically every other Android device. And you also do get 4 gigs of RAM and a Snapdragon 835. So the specifications are definitely up to date, not the 845, but with the running the stock Google experience, it really doesn't need an 845 to compete with basically anything on the market. My feelings about the specs are they're definitely still up to par with what you would expect from a flagship phone at this point in 2018. Now, I want to talk a little bit about my feelings on design. Now, this design is, well, it's polarizing. You have glass and you have a white color here, at least on this edition, and it kind of just, it's a nice contrast. I think it's kind of unique, but you know, some people are not going to be used to a design like this, especially considering that, you know, there's glass designs over here on the Galaxy devices, over here on the iPhone 10. This device has a glass design, so this one might be the prettiest or the sexiest looking phone, but it's a very practical, utilitarian, you know, Android device, and I think that, you know, it's going to be unique. You pull this phone out, nobody's really going to know what phone that is, and it probably doesn't stand out enough to, you know, get people to question what it is unless you get this white edition. Like if you get the black edition, it just looks like a big slab of smartphone. But still, you know, it's a really nice everyday phone that really takes you off the looking at the design and really getting into the software, which is I think what Google was going for. They really want to get you to use the software on this device more than to play around looking at the design. Like, for example, the iPhone 10 was a phone you really want to just kind of look at how they designed it and stuff like that, whereas the software needs some work, I feel like, on the 10. So, you know, that's how I feel about this device when it comes to design. It's practical, it's utilitarian, it works. It gets you off of the design and it starts to get you into the software. Speaking about my fingerprint location on this phone, I really did like it on the Pixel 2, and I think it returns to a great spot here on the Pixel 2 XL. It's just right in the perfect location. Like, this is like where you want it on a phone. This goes for the OnePlus 5T as well, and the newer Galaxy S9, which might be a little bit low, but this one is like in the perfect location on the Pixel 2. So great fingerprint scanner. It's not the fastest I've seen. I think the Huawei devices are a little bit quicker, and maybe even the new S9 might be exactly the same speed. The OnePlus 5T may be a little bit faster, but it works, and it works well. Talking about build quality, this phone, I feel like it has pretty good build quality. I'm not gonna say it feels like $1,000 in the hand, and I think that the price was a little high at launch at $800. I definitely would recommend that you pick up one at around, you know, $600 if you can find it. $500 to $600 I think is what this phone is worth, which is around what I paid for it. And you know, it feels like that. You know, it doesn't feel $1,000, $800. Well, you know, it doesn't have glass rear, but it gets the job done. It doesn't feel cheap. Let's just put it that way. It definitely gets cold if it, you know, in the morning. It has this aluminum back, although this aluminum back does feel like plastic. The buttons feel, you know, clicky, and it has this weight to it. It's pretty balanced, so it doesn't feel cheap. That's the best way I can put it. It doesn't feel super uber premium, but it doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't also have a fully curved display. It kind of just has these little corners that make it feel like an 18:9 display, which that it is, but it kind of makes it feel immersive like the Galaxy devices, but it's flat. It's more flat, has maybe a slight dip here on the sides, maybe a slight little curve, but nothing too much, but still feels up to date. It doesn't feel outdated or anything like that. So let's get on to the display. Probably something people want to know the most about the Pixel 2 XL when watching any videos. Does it have a blue shift? And I can confirm, yes, it does, pretty much as everyone else has. You can see it right there on camera. Goes from like a warmish color to a blue color right there on the sharpest angles. And if you go this way, you can see there's that blue shift again. Let's do it one more time. And let's go this way and do that one more time. So it's definitely there, But is it going to ruin the experience of the Pixel 2 XL? And the answer to that is absolutely not. I think this issue is super overblown, and they did include the saturated mode. So now you do have the saturation mode that really punches up the saturation on the Pixel 2 XL. Overall, I think the display looks great as long as you're not looking for those, blue shifts. If you're looking for them, you're going to find them. And pretty much all OLED displays have this, but this one just is a little bit more apparent. But honestly, with the new saturation mode, this phone is now pretty much enjoyable, just like any other device. I mean, just really, who's going to look at it on that angle? Like, seriously, are you really going to be looking at the phone on that angle? It's not that aggressive. You can still really get immersed in the content and enjoy the device. That's my take on it so far. While it doesn't have a better display as the Galaxy, it does have a little bit of, grain when you do lower the brightness all the way down. You can only see this in the darkest of environments. So when you lower this display all the way down, you're not going to see it here on camera. It does present a little bit of grain. Now, that you really have to have good eyes to see this kind of stuff, but I pay attention to details. So I definitely see a little bit of grain on the lowest brightness setting, but it's still sharp with the text. So not too big of a deal. You're only going to see that a lot at nighttime. If you don't go, down to 0, you will probably not even see it at all though. And this is one of the only displays that is OLED that I've seen that actually doesn't flicker, at all. Like that PWM stuff that the Galaxy S9 does, the S8 does, the S7, the iPhone 10, all of the OLED displays by Samsung do. You don't get that here. Well, I haven't seen it at least on the Pixel 2 XL, making this an easier phone on the eye at nighttime in my experience. Now, everybody's eyes are different. That might not matter to some people. It probably doesn't hurt them using any Samsung device, but my eyes don't take well to PWM or that flicker on the display. So I kind of keep my usage down on the Samsung phone at nighttime, whereas this one I could keep going, using it, no problem. So on the whole, my feelings about the display are it's not the best on the market. It's not better than Samsung. It's not better than the iPhone 10, I feel like, but it is still a very good display and it's definitely flagship level. They just need to balance out that whole blue shift thing, and in the Pixel 3 you're not going to see this issue. So now let's talk about software. What are my feelings on software? So this does run Android version 8.1, and you could download the beta edition of Android P, but 8.1.0, and just like an iPhone, I really like using a Pixel device because I know that whenever there's a security patch, the updates are coming like this to the Pixel very quick, and you're gonna get them. The software is a very Google-like experience. It's not so much like stock Android of past. People like to call this stock Android. I feel like this is more of a Google Android. So what that means is Google-fied. Everything is like really based around the Google Assistant, searching on this phone, squeezing it to search. Like this phone is a Google experience, not just an Android experience like the old Nexus P or the older Google Nexus 5, for example. Those phones really felt stock Android. This feels more stock Google Android, if that makes any sense. It's really Google trying to push all their services and ecosystem onto you with this device, which isn't a bad thing because a lot of the services for the Google ecosystem are free. For example, you'll have to pay for the whole Office suite on a Microsoft-based device, where on here, you will be able to get Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Keep, all these services basically for free. I mean, you do pay them back in terms of, advertising and, letting them track a little bit of data so they can market to you. But at the same time, they're exchanging you a bunch of services that can really help you out at basically no cost. You just got to get an Android device. So overall, I think the software is minimal, it's clean, it works well, and it doesn't have any extra features, out of the ordinary that are really going to make this device hard to use. It does have the split screen mode, it does have ambient display, but not too much going on here, just a minimal Google experience on this device, and it's clean, and I think that you'll like it, as I pretty much enjoyed it a lot. Okay, so let's talk about performance. The Google Pixel 2 XL is one of the fastest, if not the fastest, Android phone you can buy right now. The Galaxy S9 Plus, in my experience, might be a little bit quicker in some occasions, and the Pixel 2 is a little bit quicker in other occasions. The Google services seem to open very fast on this device, as they should. It is the Google phone, but I found RAM management to surprisingly be better on the Galaxy S9 Plus. That's probably due to its 6 gigs of RAM. This phone felt definitely like the Note 8 when it comes to RAM management, where it would see like it would reload an app there once in a while. So the Pixel 2 is not, void of reloading apps. It will reload apps sometimes if you have a lot of them piled up. So this device has great performance on the day-to-day, but you know, it doesn't have 6 gigs of RAM, which I feel like it's what it needed if it wanted to push to the level of the top performance of the pack. This is more fluid than the top performance. If you want the top performance, you probably want to take a look at the OnePlus 5T with 8 gigs of RAM, or even the S9 Plus with the new Snapdragon 845 and 6 gigs of RAM, or even their Exynos edition. Those are 2 of the fastest phones available, but this is one of the more fluid phones available that feels smooth and minimal on a day-to-day. So it has great performance, but I don't think it has the top level performance on a smartphone. So I want to take a quick second to talk about the squeeze feature. This has been great for this device. You know, when you get your hands greasy or whatever, you don't want to touch it with your finger and stuff. You just squeeze this thing and you can make a Google search. So the Google Search Squeeze Edition feature is pretty amazing on this device. It seemed gimmicky at first, but you will find yourself using that quite a bit once you remember that it is there. It's a very useful feature, to be honest with you. And I also like how you can pull the notification tray down with the fingerprint. I think that should be a must if you do have the fingerprint on the back. It just makes sense to be able to do that. So that's pretty cool there. Let's talk about the camera. I don't want to go too much on about this camera. You already know what this is. One of the best, if not the best, smartphone camera, period. People are really going to love this camera because it does some things in the background with HDR processing that make pretty much any photo you take extremely sharp. I don't know what's going on here. Getting a little lag or maybe a little bit too much touch sensitivity there. Maybe that's what it was. But you can see definitely extremely sharp on this device. Look at the details. I mean, we don't got to go on and on. I did some comparisons with the older Pixel 2 versus the Note 8 versus the iPhone 10, which you could check those out. Same camera on this device that I did, and stellar results all around. Video is great. And really where this phone shines as well is the selfie camera. The selfie camera is excellent on this device. So let's go ahead and flip this thing around. And you can see, hello, there I am. I'm kind of hiding behind the camera at this moment, but this thing is definitely very good on the front, has HDR on the front. Portrait modes does a good job of separating subject from the background. So camera all around, we already know. We don't need to talk too much about it. It's fantastic. And lastly, my feelings about this phone. I have to talk about the phone call quality with this device. This phone call quality has not been my favorite. For some reason, it just sounds scratchy sometimes when I'm making calls. So I recommend that if you want one of the better phone call qualities, you stay away from the Pixel 2 XL. This doesn't have the best phone call quality I've seen on a device. For some reason, it has pretty good speakers on the front, but then when you get into a phone call, they don't sound amazing. So that's just my experience. Some people might not agree, but this hasn't been a great phone for just pure phone calls. Nothing wrong with the reception. It's just the way it sounded. It just didn't sound right to me. It didn't have that really crisp, deep, loud sound that you get on like a Galaxy device or even I would say an iPhone device. So what don't you get with this device? Well, you don't get IP68 water resistance. You don't get wireless charging, and you don't get stuff like Samsung Pay or Apple Pay, but you do get Google Pay. So that should work well in a lot of locations. So that's basically it. My feelings are this is a pretty good smartphone. I mean, if you want to have the latest Google experience and you want to be updated for a long time, the Pixel 2 XL is the way to go. It offers pretty much everything a flagship needs to offer. It does have some issues here and there. It's not a perfect smartphone, but its software really shines, and I think it'll make you forget about some of its shortcomings. And I still recommend to get this phone in April 2018 if you are looking for a Google experience. And I also recommend this if you're an iPhone user trying Android for the first time, either the smaller Pixel 2 or the Pixel 2 XL. You could even consider last year's Pixels. These phones are the closest to iPhone I feel when it comes to fluidity. So that wraps it up here. If you have any questions, comments, video suggestions, feedback, you know what to do. Drop your comments down below. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And if you're new here, consider subscribing for more. We have a lot of content coming, and you don't want to forget to have those notifications turned on either. Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Be sure to be well. I will catch you all in the next episode, and peace.